Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are on Season 2, Episode 20, Investigations. This episode aired March 13th, 1996. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, which... no idea what it was. It seems like it's been 3 months since we recorded. I don't even remember when I watched this episode at this point. Because we're all in a mess.
We take a break and you're just lost.
I am lost. Okay, seriously, I have to go look up what was the previous episode.
I'm being very quiet to make it seem like I remember.
Okay, it was Life Signs with the Vidian who came on board.
Yes.
And the whole stupid love story with the Doctor, right? Okay.
Yes, the Doctor dates Hannibal Lecter.
I think the problem is there was still a Prodigy episode in between when we recorded, and then I had a migraine and we missed a day, and now it's just, everything's confusing.
Well, we spent an awful lot of time outside of the podcast discussing Prodigy. I think that's probably a reason why.
Well, that's over now, and we're back to Voyager every week.
Yes.
All right, so should we talk about investigations?
Yes, I think we should.
All right, over to you.
We open with Neelix having started a public access TV station on Voyager to help crew morale, and he's calling it a briefing with Neelix. Do you think we need to explain public access TV to a world of Twitch and YouTubers?
Yeah, they don't know what that is, but I mean, I thought he just invented YouTube, which is essentially what it is. But you're right, it is more like public access, which we used to have back in the days before the internet. I don't know if it still exists, because now I think you would just take your thing that you were going to do to YouTube.
Put it up on YouTube. But 96, public access was all there.
Yeah. And it was basically just people making their own TV shows, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about public access. It was a wild time.
Oh, it really was.
It would air like the middle of the night, right? After the regular broadcast ended, because folks who are too young to remember, TV used to end in the evening. It didn't go on 24 hours a day. Channels would actually go off the air.
Yeah, and it's not that long ago. It's really weird.
It is a long time ago. We're just old.
Oh, okay. Getting back to the show and our memories of living in the Midwest in the 90s when this originally aired. Anyway, back to the show. So it sounds like he's basically gonna dish gossip on the crew, talk about entertaining things, have jugglers.
Well, first of all, he says everything you see here will be the most uplifting and optimistic news, which is untrue almost immediately.
Yeah.
And secondly, the romance gossip stuff, that is out of order. Somebody needs to put a stop to that. What are you doing?
Yeah, he's jumping straight into tabloid TV, episode 1.
Oh, not good.
After this intro, we see that Neelix is actually in sickbay trying to recruit the Doctor to be on one of his shows. The Doctor's resistant, but soon as Neelix mentions celebrity, the Doc is interested.
Yeah, he's like, you'll be famous. Oh.
I think it's really funny that the holographic program would be interested in this. I feel there is so much of Zimmerman in this program. And I think what we see, there is this desire for celebrity to be recognized as the Doctor. And I think it's really funny that you would develop a program that would head in this direction. It kind of parallels what we were talking about in Dreadnought. B'Elanna's built this learning program, this AI that ends up on a roll. And I love this with the Doctor.
Well, and there's lots of ways you could look at it, because you could certainly just look at it like he recognizes that he could share useful information with the crew, and he could get information out there where people would almost be forced to watch it, right? They couldn't ask him a bunch of questions or interrupt him. You know, he would just have the floor.
Yeah.
So I can see how that would be appealing, but it is funny that they lean into the ego of a non-existent human. But at the same time, if he was programmed to have the personality of the person that they copied, right, then it would make sense that he would actually have an ego, even if the ego isn't really an ego, it's a program.
Yeah. Off to Neelix now, asking Harry what he thought of a briefing with Neelix. And a quick question here. Why would he be doing recipes? Are people cooking stuff in their quarters?
Oh, I hope not. He might just be sharing the ingredients, and it's a cooking show.
That's true.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to cook the things, yeah.
No, I don't cook most of the things I watch on cooking shows either. But it's nice, lighthearted TV sometimes.
Harry explains to Neelix how the show needs a little bit more substance. And Harry was actually the editor of the Starfleet Academy newspaper for a year.
Not a surprise.
Which seems absolutely perfect for such a true believer as Harry. Mm-hmm. Well, he explains the concept of journalism to Neelix, giving the naive platitude of, the job of a journalist is to be independent. Which I thought was funny. I thought the point of a journalism was to sell propaganda on behalf of your owners.
Remember the 90s when we still thought journalism was a thing?
Yes.
I mean, it's so... We talked about it on Deep Space Nine because they made Jake also a journalist because,
right.
yeah, there was still a thread of optimism about what journalism was then.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I thought so, too, that I was going to go into journalism. But at some point, it was just like, no, this is a crazy career. It's not for me. And it's really... It's not what it was supposed to be, I think.
Right,
but it is funny now to look back on it when they try to talk about it as just some high and mighty thing. And now we just are like, yeah.
Who's paying you for the PR you produce?
Mm-hmm. I wish we still had journalism, but...
Maybe I'm being far too cynical here of, in the Star Trek future, where people actually have morals and ethics, journalism would be a noble profession of actual truth-telling, of actual fact-finding.
You should. But of course, the Star Trek vision, right, was that humans would have evolved beyond anything negative, personal conflicts, all of that wouldn't exist. So in that scenario, it doesn't make a ton of sense, right?
Yeah.
But of course, that's not, as we found, that's not interesting enough. Humans still have to be humans in order to make good stories. And it would make sense, too, that there would still be things that you would want objective reporting on from around the Federation, maybe not just on the humans and Earth and whatever. So,
exactly.
it would make sense. Mm-hmm.
If you follow that out logically with Gene Roddenberry's concept, journalism, like humans, would be trying to be a pure endeavor.
God, and if you go all the way back to Gene Roddenberry's time, right now you're talking about when news really was a thing. People actually trusted, like, Walter Cronkite and those sort of humans that just don't exist anymore because that job doesn't exist anymore because nobody believes anything. It's just funny how idealistic we were in the 90s still about journalism.
Neelix now receives an unexpected call from an old Talaxian friend called Laxith, and there's a little banter about how he used to sell ill-gotten goods. Well, his friend's now gone legit and is the comms master of a Talaxian convoy, telling Neelix he's going to be rendezvousing with Voyager to pick up a passenger. One of the crew wants to leave and come work for the Talaxian convoy. Into the opening credits.
Big surprise.
You know, sometimes I just like to watch those opening credits of Voyager. I mean, it's no Deep Space Nine Season 1, but it's such a great opening. And most importantly, no singing.
Well, yeah.
Seeing as a lot of people pointed out that we'd forgotten, and I'm going to say forgotten, that Beta Zeds have completely black eyes. Did you notice that Laxeth didn't have Neelix's orange eyes?
Oh, I did not notice.
Yeah. I assume they figured that because we'd be watching it again on those 19-inch CRTs, we wouldn't actually notice.
Yeah, a lot of people did have to remind us about the Betazoid eyes thing. I don't know why neither one of us remembered that, but okay. No, I didn't notice that he didn't have the same eyes. Maybe Neelix just has like Paul Hollywood eyes. They're slightly different.
Oh.
So he can do a TV show like Paul Hollywood.
Neelix is meeting with Janeway, and she wants to know how he found out about somebody leaving the ship. And he immediately answers, shouldn't a good journalist be protecting their sources?
And how would he know what a journalist was after having a 25-second conversation with Harry in the hallway? Did he go and look it up? Did he Google it?
Janeway informs Neelix that Tom Paris has been asked to be put off the ship. Tuvok describes Tom as disruptive and often sets a bad example for the rest of the crew.
I didn't remember this at all.
Really?
I was like, really? Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we've got to this episode because when Tom started going funny, I suddenly went, I don't remember. Oh, I remember this.
I didn't remember it at all. Everything is always a surprise to me. And yes, I did watch the show.
Janeway tells Neelix when he was relieved of duty, he asked to leave the ship, and Janeway just couldn't talk him out of it. When they detected the Talaxian convoy, They were more than happy to get a pilot of Tom's ability. Janeway does allow Neelix to talk to Tom in his quarters, and Tom explains how it was a mistake to try and fit into Starfleet again. Even being in the rehab colony would have been better than being on Voyager.
In this scene, Tom's like gold velvety shirt and these print pajama pants that he's wearing with a black belt. I mean, this is next level ugly, this outfit.
We watched this episode together, and Kim is just, what is Tom wearing?
It was bad.
Neelix is worried that their earlier differences contributed to Tom's decision, but Tom just assures him no, this isn't about anyone but himself, saying wherever he goes, he ends up making a mess of things. Neelix finally tells Tom he wishes he wouldn't go and hugs him. And Tom really awkwardly hugs him back.
Yeah.
It is possible that Neelix is just upset by Tom's outfit.
Maybe. The dialogue in this scene I thought was really bad. I mean, it's good that in the end, I guess it wasn't really happening the way that Neelix thought, and maybe that's why it was an awkward conversation, but I don't know. I just thought we should have worked a little harder on this scene.
I'm going to give Tom the benefit of the doubt because I thought Ethan Phillips did actually a really good job here. And I think Tom was deliberately trying to play the part that he has in this whole mission and was finding it difficult to do. I thought it worked from that perspective because Neelix did seem so very genuine.
Okay.
And I thought...
Yeah, I see your point.
That's another thing I'm going to point out here. I think when you give Ethan Phillips actually good material, he delivers.
Oh, yeah, I have no problem with him as an actor. In fact, I have no problem with Neelix anymore at all. They just had a lot of trouble in the beginning figuring out what they were doing with him. Yeah. We did talk about on the Deep Space Nine podcast quite a bit about how 300 years in the future, luggage really hasn't improved.
Yeah.
So I was really laughing at Tom just stuffing clothes into his duffel bag. It's just like, oh no, it's the crappy luggage again.
Yep.
No advancements.
Yeah, we get to around 2280, something like that, and all luggage just turns into duffel bags.
Yes.
We continue the joke with the Doctor desperately wanting to get on Neelix's show. He's prepared a topic for the day, how to keep your nostrils happy.
Great.
I have the feeling that the Doctor's presentations would be extremely dry.
A bit dry, yeah, for sure. Very clinical.
Neelix deflects, saying he's got another story he needs to work on. And I kind of feel disappointed for the Doctor. He seems really deflated.
I mean, why can't you do both?
Neelix does tell the Doctor that he'll put him on later. And the Doctor perks up, and he has a second topic, uncovering the hidden mysteries of the adrenal gland.
That actually sounds interesting. I might watch that.
These do sound like YouTube videos.
100%, yes.
Neelix is now recording a piece about Tom, describing how, despite his first impressions and the things he saw as flaws, Tom Eugene Paris became his friend. While he's speaking, we cut to people all over the ship watching the broadcast. And as it wraps up, Tom, in the transporter room, is saying goodbye to Kes, Neelix and Harry, and Tom beams away.
So, first of all, get to work, people. Why is everybody on the ship watching this? I mean, even in engineering, they're watching it. I just thought that was very awkward.
This makes me worry about crew efficiency. Is it being degraded by people now watching Neelix's show instead of doing their job?
Yeah, definitely. Everybody is completely distracted. I found it really peculiar that they didn't lean at all into Harry.
Oh.
Because I mean, Harry was there when Tom left, but he gets no dialogue, right? That's a scene while we're listening to Neelix. And those two are supposed to be really close friends. And so you're telling me that this had no impact on Harry? That Tom
Harry's
was
like,
leaving
bye.
Forever?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, unless Harry knew, but I don't think he knew.
Maybe they cut stuff out from Harry. But maybe Harry just figured that despite his best efforts, he wasn't getting through to Tom. And that Tom had to find his own path.
Yeah. Was this the part where Neelix used the word licentiousness?
Yes, it was.
That's a wild word to use in that context. It's a bit too big, I think, for Trek. You mean, if it's technobabble, that's one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced we used the word appropriately. But I do think overall, Neelix's speech is pretty good.
Yes. In a senior staff meeting, B'Elanna is reporting that there's an imbalance in the magnetic constrictors, which is causing the plasma stream to overheat. Which, if everyone remembers, is the plan outlined by Seska to traitor Jonas.
That's right.
Engineering calls, interrupting the meeting because things are starting to get worse. The plasma stream is getting too hot. Neelix asks to join B'Elanna in engineering as it sounds like news of substance. He's going all in on being the journalist, isn't he? I wonder if he's reading the same books that Jake Sisko is.
Yeah, there's probably only 1 or 2 books available on journalism in the computer. In this scene, too, Harry does a little, maybe Tom will come back, and Janeway just, like, stomps on his heart. Like, I don't know why she couldn't say, yeah, maybe Harry, and let him be happy about something, but instead she goes, that's not going to happen.
Well, I think that's because she wanted the mission to continue.
Oh, I know, but still, you didn't have to do that.
Shut up, Harry.
Exactly.
In engineering, there's a lot of technobabble, and the music is building, so we know there's something going wrong, and we get the risk of a core breach. Good Star Trek staple there. I notice here, Jonas seems to be the one doing most of the hands-on work. Are they so short-staffed that they can't have somebody else making sure that he's not screwing things up?
Well, apparently.
Yeah. Things come to a head, and there's an explosion. Jonas goes down.
Yeah.
B'Elanna takes control, and we see outside shots of Voyager venting plasma. I always feel there is just too few space shots of the ship. Leading on from what I was saying there. So Trader Jonas is doing a lot of the legwork, with B'Elanna ordering him around. Are there any logs leading up to the incident of what actions he's taking during this emergency for the purpose of checking efficiency and compliance? And shouldn't you be reviewing them?
You would think so, but we don't have time for that. And also, I think what they're showing in this episode is that he's pretty good at covering his tracks. He's not great at it.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Because he doesn't do it in a way that completely erases suspicion when someone looks very carefully at it, but he does do it in a way that people are like, oh yeah, that could happen because whatever, right? Because even Tuvok later, he says something about, oh, that thing in the log is probably because of the plasma, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So he's at least good enough to cover his tracks in that way.
Oh, the plasma surge destroyed it all.
Yeah, that's what he seems to be doing.
Okay. Yeah. That is kind of a theme through this. He is good at covering his tracks. So, okay.
I'm sure he learned from Seska, because that was the thing that she was really good at, right?
That's very true. Or however many other spies and subversives were on Chakotay's ship.
Right.
I'm pretty sure there was a Breen on there, or at least one face-changed Klingon. In sickbay, there are wounded from the explosions. One guy has absolutely messed up hands, and the doctor just says, this one's not badly hurt.
Oh, yeah, and he looked like he was really hurt.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, the doctor's like, nah, you can go back to work.
Walk it off. Also, we see that Jonas has burns to the chest, face, and hands. I think he should have gotten out the way a little bit quicker, seeing as he was making the accident.
Well, he does make himself look pretty innocent, though, by getting hurt.
Oh, so you think that was part of his plan?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'm not sure he meant to get hurt quite that badly, but I do think that was part of his plan.
Yeah, that would be a very good technique for a traitor.
Well, yeah, because from here, Neelix refers to him as a hero.
Yeah, good point. Before Neelix can badger the reluctant Jonas into an interview, Neelix is called to the bridge. Janeway with B'Elanna explain how the warp engines had been damaged by the accident, and they need a substance called Verterium cortinide to repair them. And this is when Neelix's local knowledge comes in. He knows a nearby system called Hemikek, where they can trade with a mining consortium for the minerals they need.
He can be very useful.
This is exactly what you need him for. Before he leaves, there's a message from the Talaxian convoy. Laxath tells him that the Kazon Nistrum attacked the convoy, but they didn't take any of their cargo. They just took Tom Paris. Very dramatic ad break. On a Kazon ship, we see Tom as being held prisoner, but not in holding cells, I will note. And in comes a very pregnant Seska. The lighting in this scene was really good. When they cut to Tom, he's standing in this like grey-blue light, and he's really well highlighted. It's a really interesting sort of visual look, and a contrast between the Seska lighting and Tom.
What do you mean it's a contrast between Seska and Tom?
Seska's in just sort of the normal, slightly dimmed light in the ship. And then when it pans to Tom, he's all sort of like brightly lit and illuminated.
No, I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think they're leaning a little bit into, these are the bad guys. So it's a little bit dark. And Seska has moved into her villain phase.
Oh, very much
right? So she has to be lit in a particularly dramatic way. And so I think that's what they're doing here.
Right.
I really like when she comes in and she's basically like, I never liked you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that made me laugh. It's like, all right.
Yep.
Nice to see you.
as Kim said, she comes in and tells Tom in another month Chakotay will have a son or a daughter. And do you think she told Cullen whose child it was?
Oh, no, absolutely not, because there's a different episode where she's talking about him being the father.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and who knows what the truth is? It's going to be like when that baby came out on the episode with Dukat, where you had to just see that it was half Cardassian to know that he was the father. It's either going to come out with crazy hair and be a Kazon, or it's going to come out looking like Chakotay.
I think Seska might want to keep that info to herself and not just blurt it out to Tom.
What do you mean?
That it isn't Keller's kid?
Yeah, but Seska already told Chakotay that it was his kid.
But she's on a Kazon ship with members of the Kazon Nistrum.
That's a good point. Although I guess she could just easily say that she's making that up to manipulate him.
Oh,
she'd just have to paint a different story.
Yeah, she is a spy.
Yeah.
Well, Tom is surprised that Seska seems very well informed on the conflict between him and Chakotay.
Oh, right.
Tom tells her, at the end of the day, Lieutenant Tom Paris was someone he just couldn't be. There's a lot of banter about not liking each other and trust, but she still attempts to recruit him, saying that they could make good use of his skills. And she finally asks him where he'd like to be when the Nistrum sees Voyager and start taking control of the quadrant, sector by sector. This is wonderfully pure Cardassian.
Yeah.
They've not even managed to take the ship yet.
No. Delusional.
And she's planning the Empire.
Yeah.
I don't think you get any more Cardassian than that.
Yeah. And too, though, that's maybe become a part of the daily shtick for her, right?
Yeah.
Is she has to sort of justify her position.
Oh,
and,
right.
Keep up this appearance that, we're going to take over everything. It's like, yeah, but probably not.
Oh, because the Kazon are so full of bluster.
Yeah.
Well, she probably fits right in.
Mm.
And Seska, being a classic villain, exits without leaving a guard, or cameras, or having any kind of security where they're keeping Tom.
Yeah.
Who immediately starts messing with a console, taking out a small device hidden in his sleeve and attaching it to the display. So, didn't they even search him?
When he pulled that thing out of his sleeve, I went, oh. It's not that I remembered the whole story at that moment, but I went, oh, yeah, okay. But it was funny. You're like, really? You guys didn't search him at all? Okay.
I mean, again, I think that maybe points to the Kazon are really not, they're not very good.
Yeah.
They're low rent henchmen.
Yeah, kind of lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not lazy is not the right word. Like,
did you search him?
Yeah, low rent, I think, is the right phrase, where we did the bare minimum because that's what we know about.
Right. That makes me wonder, maybe there's a pride thing with this. Did you search him? I'm not going to be the one searching him. That's for a lowly person.
Yeah.
A sort of an arrogance with the Kazon.
Maybe.
Back to Voyager, and they're still on course for the Hemikek system. Neelix is very suspicious of how the Kazon attacked a convoy just a day after Tom joined it. None of it makes sense to him, especially leaving the cargo, and he thinks they knew Tom was there. He tells Kes he suspects it was somebody on Voyager that informed to the Kazon, and as a responsible journalist, he's going to find out.
I mean, I wrote in my notes, responsible journalist. I mean...
Like I said, he's read the same books Jake Sisko has.
It's like, how does he even know what that means? It's just such a funny phrase. It's clearly not something that exists in his world up until this point.
Right,
so how,
right.
How is he already saying, as a responsible journalist, I should do X? It's like, okay.
Well, I think your comment earlier, he's looked it up and he's read like a basic book on journalism, like almost an idealistic view of it.
Yeah.
In engineering, B'Elanna gives Neelix access to the logs and he starts going through them. He's left alone in engineering with only Jonas and asks Trader Jonas, if you want to make a secret transmission, how would you do that? And the actor playing Jonas looks so guilty here. He does a great job of looking totally shifty. And it's like, why would you need to do that? Why would anyone do that?
Why do you need to know about that?
Oh, it was very well done. Neelix does find that there are gaps in the logs, and Jonas dismisses it as just data fragmentation, a glitch.
I just noticed my notes say, this guy could not look any more guilty.
Right. Oh, yeah, he does a great job. As Neelix continues, Jonas powers up like a plasma torch and starts creeping up behind Neelix.
Yeah.
But just before he closes in on Neelix's neck, the doctor interrupts, calling to complain that He wasn't included in the latest episode of the show. He has a new piece too. The Klingon Glottis. Friend or foe. This was hilarious.
How did the doctor not see Jonas creeping up behind Neelix when he called? That was one thing. And the other thing was he was like, oh, Mr. Neelix, there you are. And it's just like, what do you mean there you are? What happened to just calling on the comm badge? It's like every normal thing went out the window in this moment. And we had to call so that we could do some particular visual, which didn't really make sense. I don't know. That was a little bit of a problem, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I guess it gave an easy way to stop Jonas from attacking him.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that when you're watching it, you don't see it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But when you're watching it 2 times to do a podcast about it, you're like, wait a minute. That's not how that would work.
It works in the moment while you're watching it.
Yeah.
Poor Jonas, foiled again. This is a very Neelix-focused episode, as he's now meeting with Tuvok, bringing his findings of the gaps in the logs. His theory is that somebody has been communicating with the Kazon. Tuvok is pretty dismissive, but agrees to just investigate, telling Neelix it's ship security and he alone will handle it. Tim Russ does some more great Tuvok here. Just seemingly irritated with Neelix's thoroughness.
Yeah, but if he had handled it differently, then Neelix wouldn't have gotten himself into more trouble, right? All he had to do was say,
really? What do you think?
Thank you for this information. This is very useful. Now, let's keep it quiet so that I can investigate it. But instead, he tries to override him and sort of belittle Neelix, which I think we've seen in the past. Neelix doesn't react well, or nobody does, when somebody tries to belittle their value. So I think that Tuvok sort of caused this problem a little bit.
Maybe that's the problem, dealing with Vulcans. I mean, even one as old as him and as experienced as him.
Mm-hmm.
If you were dealing with another Vulcan and said, I alone will investigate this, your role here has been completed, a Vulcan would simply say, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
And would leave it at that.
I just think Vulcans aren't good at manipulating people. They're good at irritating them.
Maybe it's a cultural failing of they don't learn from the social norms of other races how to get the best of them because they're working purely on logic.
Yeah.
And the logical thing here is if the security officer said they were going to investigate it, the logical response is, I will leave it to you to investigate.
Yes, but I would counter that it is not logical to assume that Neelix is going to behave the way a member of the crew would behave.
And that's his failing.
Yes.
Despite his experience, Tuvok is still making these mistakes, but maybe that's totally Vulcan.
Yeah, good point.
Also in the scene, it is funny how Neelix says, as a journalist, he has an ethical obligation to keep digging for the facts.
First of all, you've been a journalist for 35 seconds. And secondly, where was your ethical obligation when you were gossiping about someone's private business, which was only 2 hours earlier?
That's because Harry hadn't explained journalism to him yet.
Yeah.
I think we all know that despite being told directly not to, Neelix continues to dig, eventually enlisting the help of Hogan in engineering. And this is another really nicely framed scene, because while Neelix and Hogan are working together at the console, and in the background you can see Jonas, just keeping an eye and listening to what's going on, and it forms just a great visual look that it's telling you exactly what's going on here, that he's concerned about Neelix's activities.
Yeah, but from our angle, it's so obvious.
Right.
Yeah, you want to go, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. See Parks and Rec.
I also have to point out here how Hogan just gives out his password openly. Okay. He says it out loud. Omega 47.
But that's what they all do. And I don't know how many times we talked about that on Deep Space Nine. It's just here's another good example of where security makes no sense and we should just go drink because come on.
Well, the upshot of all of this is Hogan finds a tricky method was used to transmit the messages via the ship's power grid and tracks it down to Deck 4, Section C. With this, Neelix heads off to find the console where they were sent from, ultimately ending up it came from Tom's terminal.
First of all, okay, how did he break into Tom's room?
Well, he's using the engineering password. He uses it when he gets into Tom's quarters. He now has the engineering password. The ship's his.
But I don't know that the engineering password should have opened the door. I get why it might give you access to something on the computer, but does he have an override code as the ship's morale officer? There's someone unhappy in this room. I should be allowed in.
I will assume that because Tom's quarters are unoccupied, they don't have a password on them.
Well, maybe, except there's still apparently something available on that computer.
Oh, that's
that you can only get on that computer in that room, which of course also doesn't make any sense. But
okay.
But anyway, yes.
Okay. Alternatively, Jonas left it open for him.
Okay, I'll buy that, yeah. Because Jonas was actually trying to paint this picture so that Neelix would find this evidence, yeah. All right, that does actually make sense.
And we cut immediately to Neelix's latest broadcast. He spills the beans on what he found, telling the crew Tom Paris was in communication with the Kazon.
He goes right to air with something that he learned. He is a YouTuber. I did my own research. Oh my God. Where is your ethical obligation, dude, to do a little bit more due diligence on the thing that you just learned? Nope, we're going right to air. And this also made me think, Tuvok knew he would do this. Just let him go and do it.
That would be absolutely hilarious on Tuvok's part. I'm just going to let him do it.
Yeah, I think based on the next scene, that's not what happened. But, I mean, come on, man.
While watching this, a very stern Janeway tells Tuvok, get him up here now. I was laughing out loud at this. I thought that was just great.
That's my favorite Janeway.
Now being interviewed by Janeway, Neelix explains how he found the logs. And Tuvok notes he didn't find them before. Someone placed them there after his initial investigation.
I noticed that Neelix completely left out how he broke into Tom's quarters and used somebody else's security code to get the information.
Well, he was acting as a journalist. It was his duty to find the information.
His moral obligation.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. Chakotay is very confused by what's going on, asking Janeway, what's going on? And here we get the big reveal. Janeway tells them she and Tuvok know there is a spy on board. It's not Tom, because he was part of their plan to flush them out.
Oh, this is my favorite moment, maybe of the whole season. When Chakotay is so mad.
Tuvok discovered that someone was talking to the Kazon, but couldn't find them. Their plan was to get Tom aboard the Kazon ship. Chakotay wasn't brought in on any of this, because they needed Tom to appear to be a malcontent. Chakotay is so bent out of shape.
Yeah.
Janeway is so great here. She really deflects well, saying, we wanted a good performance, and you helped provide it. And you did a damn good job. That was perfect. This was masterful. He's getting mad, and she totally deflects him by being the captain and saying, you did a good job.
I've 100% done that to deflect somebody who is like starting to get madder and madder. I've 100% turned them on their head and done something different. But at the same time, he's like, why didn't you trust me? Why didn't you tell me what was going on? And it's like, clearly, okay, the reason is because you protect the Maquis. Every bad thing that has happened so far has been the Maquis. You've tried to claim that it wasn't, but it's not true. Who was the murderer? A Maquis. Who was the original saboteur? Seska, a Maquis. I mean, you continue to protect them, so of course they're not going to read you in, because you're going to go and tell somebody in the Maquis, and then it's all going to get out. It's just like, dude, you deserve this.
Well, Janeway as well, I think, also really smartly jumps in before Tuvok can say, no, I don't trust you.
Yeah, because you can tell Tuvok does not care that Chakotay's feelings are hurt.
Well, one, from the standpoint of he's a Vulcan, so feelings are irrelevant. And two, for the fact that if Tuvok is being an efficient security officer, no, we shouldn't trust him.
No.
Like you said, he didn't tell us about the psychopath on your crew. What else have you left out?
Well, he left out that he had a relationship with Seska, right? He left that out.
Oh, there's another one.
He took off to try to get Seska, whatever, on his own without telling anyone. It's just like, dude, you're not trustworthy when it comes to the Maquis. You are endlessly bitching that we treat the Maquis differently. And the reason we're treating them differently is because of you.
Yeah. He'd go off and start talking to the Maquis and saying, okay, so who's the traitor? Jonas, do you have any ideas who the traitor is?
This guy. This was like my favorite moment because I've been upset about this for, I don't know, it feels like months, I guess, while we've watched this show, which is that this guy is not trustworthy. And thank you very much. We have just proven that we do not trust him.
It was great.
Yeah, I feel vindicated.
Continuing, Janeway thinks Neelix's actions could help flush out the spy and asks him to keep investigating. Keep poking around and asking questions. make people think maybe he wasn't right about Tom.
Sure.
They do point out here how it could be dangerous, and Tuvok says how he'll keep an open comm link, so if anything happens, they'll know about it. And from seeing how the security teams work previously, I believe this is because Tuvok and his crew could turn up and find a warm dead body.
Yeah. I'm not sure that we actually have done this thing that he says we can do.
Neelix, we'll find your dead body while the traitor is trying to stuff it into an airlock or into a plasma conduit. On the Kazon ship, Tom is messing with the console and finally hacks into the Kazon comms, seeing Jonas and hearing Seska say they have forces on Hemikek 4. But he's also discovered, and in comes Seska with armed Kazon. They try to take him away, but the device on the console explodes, throwing everyone to the ground and giving Tom the chance to escape with a disruptor.
I love it when little tiny things cause gigantic explosions. That is really funny.
It's a classic piece of Star Trek. I think here Tom did miss the opportunity of solving so many problems. Shoot Seska, shoot the 2 Kazon.
Yeah.
I think he needs to have a little bit more study in Klingon battle tactics. If this had been B'Elanna, there wouldn't have been a Kazon left alive.
Well, probably not. At the same time, I think B'Elanna, she has some conflicting feelings about Seska, so hard to say how that would have gone exactly. But yeah, he should have taken them all out.
This is where I feel Tom actually becoming Starfleet is hampering his ability to survive.
Yeah.
This is where he should have taken Lon Sutter with him.
Oh, geez.
There's an escape scene where Tom wrestles with some Kazon and shoots some more Kazon and finally manages to escape on a small Kazon ship, all while taking fire. And there's a really weird, abrupt ad cut here.
Is there?
Yeah, it seems like it was bad editing. The ship escapes and it's like a really weird cut. And you're like, oh, what exactly happened there?
We really needed that ad about Tide or whatever it was.
On Voyager, in engineering, Neelix is asking for more help, telling Jonas and Hogan he thinks the evidence against Tom was added after the fact. Jonas makes Hogan take a datapad to B'Elanna, leaving just him and Neelix in engineering. Meanwhile, Janeway needs more power for transporters as there's an incoming shuttle with a human life sign on board. In other words, it's Tom. In the shuttle, which is getting beaten to crap, Tom manages to get comms to Janeway, telling her of the troops waiting on Hemikek, and it's a Kazon ambush. But the transmission's cut as the ships hit again and Tom's knocked to the ground. I feel here Tom should have led with who the traitor was, then the ambush.
Well, he eventually gets to it.
I feel telling them who the traitor on board is way more important. Jonas in engineering is not working on the transporter systems, and Neelix notices this. But Jonas just brushes it off with an excuse, then sets up a containment field, sealing off engineering. Tom manages to get back to his feet and tells Janeway the spy is Jonas. Once again, should have led with that detail. Neelix now sees that Jonas is disabling weapons, and Jonas just turns around and knocks him to the ground. Neelix is out. On the bridge, they beam Tom out of the Kazon ship as it starts firing at Voyager, but they discover weapons are offline. We get the classic transporter problem here, of they try to beam Jonas out, but he took his comm badge off, so they just beam the badge out.
That is so dumb. And we just, because...
My question is, why don't you beam the security team into engineering?
Yeah. And we've talked about this on Prodigy, because there's a scene towards the end where Dal takes off his badge and then they beam away. And it's like, yeah, but if that worked consistently, they would have beamed the badge away and not Dal. But,
right.
We only do that according to what we need to happen. It is so silly. And it's also silly to think that, again, these advanced computers that can do transporting can't identify that all it's about to move is a little tiny badge instead of an actual human being. It's so silly.
Neelix comes to, and we begin a fight with Jonas. This very clearly, we see that Neelix is not a fighter. Even with the advantage of a metal club, he's just not very effective.
And, of course, the use of a stunt double.
Well, there's also the part where they roll over one of the consoles when they're fighting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the stunt double is noticeably slimmer and a lot shorter than Neelix.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also, when they're fighting, they go out of their way to keep his face.
To keep their faces down, yeah. It's fun to watch stuff like that now.
Oh, yeah. Well, the struggle continues. And below them, it looks like a plasma conduit has ruptured. As Jonas rushes Neelix, he sidesteps him, and Neelix pushes him over the railing into the exposed conduit.
And that's a wrap on Jiminy Jonas.
Did Neelix actually push him?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he kind of almost like you would see a bullfighter, right? It's not that really pushed, but just like helped him along.
Helped him along. Neelix gets the weapons back online, and Voyager quickly disables the Kazon ship. Again, on that ship, you have Kazon and you have Seska. Shoot the ship, get rid of Seska, and the Kazon are also down a ship.
Yeah, but they're trying really hard to have allies, and also we still think we need the Kazon, but I agree, yeah. Get rid of that ship.
Yeah, you've disabled it, time to get rid of it. This is probably why it wouldn't be on the bridge. I'm sorry, Captain, the photon torpedo launched accidentally on its own.
I don't know what happened.
It was the spirit of Jank and Pog fired it. Neelix drops the force field, letting Tuvok back into engineering, telling him, I'll have plenty of material for tomorrow's briefing.
And like, we're not going to talk about the fact that you just caused the death of an officer? Sure. Go about your business. No big deal.
Where is Mr. Jonas? I don't know.
Oh, he was just here a minute ago. I don't know.
And now we go to Tom on Neelix's morning show, recounting his adventures and apologizing to his crewmates for being a jerk to build his cover, and especially Commander Chakotay. And there's a little bit of humor of how much he enjoyed being a jerk to Commander Chakotay.
I don't blame him.
Neelix signs off, telling the viewers, the Doctor will be back tomorrow with lots of interesting facts about the Bolian digestive system.
Sure.
The end.
Oh, that was a funny ending.
That was a funny ending, and it did feel very much like a morning show.
Oh my God. Well, do you have overanalysis of this episode?
First of all, although a great plot point and really well built up to this eventual episode, I think the plan with Tom was really quite dangerous. Because Tom is a former member of the Marquis, so he still maybe could be seen as not truly Starfleet. His actions, how many of the Marquis could be influenced by Tom's actions?
Yeah.
By them saying, oh, Tom's being a jerk, why can't I be a jerk too? I mean, Tom's right in all of this. They're not taking us seriously. So I could see it being dangerous in terms of turning the Marquis more rebellious. And secondly, just low-level damage to morale for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I talk about a lot, that leadership is something that everybody shows, right? However you behave, you're showing other people how to behave. And it is something that they should have taken into account when making the plan for this. I guess at the same time, if you kind of look at it that way, what he is actually showing is that it's not something that fits on the ship, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because he was behaving that way and then ultimately had to leave the ship. So I guess in that way, you're showing positive leadership because that sort of activity just doesn't belong. At the same time, it can just breed more negativity amongst the Maquis.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So I guess, if you look at it as maybe they were taking on balance of these things could be dangerous to the ship, but having a traitor on board who's working with the Kazon, that's even more dangerous. So I guess you could look at it as a balancing act.
Well, to some degree, that might have been part of the plan as well, is that maybe they thought that might smoke out the traitor because they might find a kindred spirit and try to build an alliance.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So the traitor would look at Tom and go, hey, we're in this together, bud.
But boy, you really do have to worry about undermining the entire crew morale with it.
Right.
I find it very funny that they didn't tell Chakotay.
Oh.
It was my favorite moment. I was just like, oh, dude, they didn't tell you because you didn't deserve to be told.
Well, that actually leads right on to my next point. Janeway and Tuvok did not include Chakotay because they thought he could be the traitor.
Oh, sure.
They know Seska has Chakotay's baby.
Yeah.
They had a relationship in the past. Chakotay, remember, wanted an alliance with the Kazon and thought that they should be doing deals, that they should be working together. If you're sitting there analyzing who could be a possible traitor and working with Seska, Chakotay would come up pretty high on that list.
Yeah, I can see that.
But also leading on from that, I guess it might actually improve Chakotay's standing with Tuvok. Given all these things that could point to him being a traitor, it could say, maybe he is actually solid. That he's still prepared to toe the Starfleet line, to work with us, to listen to the captain, and not work with Seska.
Yeah, I think the risk was too high, though. I think you're right that they suspected him And Janeway had to pivot in the moment to be like, oh, no, we needed your reactions to be genuine. And she sort of played up that they did it for that reason. But I think you're totally right. And it was too risky to read him into it.
But do you think that it would improve his standing?
No. Well, but that's just me. I don't trust him because it doesn't change any of his actions, right? All of the things that I say make him untrustworthy still happened, whether or not he was a traitor.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
So maybe he's not a traitor, but I still don't think he's a trustworthy first officer.
Yeah. Okay. Just not giving him any breaks.
No. Why would I do that? All the people who listen would be like, who's that person?
Next thing, planting Tom on the convoy. Isn't that incredibly dangerous and irresponsible to do to the Talaxians?
Oh.
They could have been all killed.
This is my first note in overanalysis, is this plan was crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel that the Talaxians at least should have been... I mean, you couldn't make them aware. They might have leaked the information, but you could have gotten them all killed.
You could have gotten them all killed, yeah. I wonder if... Did they read them in on it? Did they actually give them something in return saying that we think this is what's going to happen? But, did they think that's exactly what would happen? I mean, the plan is wild.
Right.
To think that Janeway would put someone else at risk seems crazy. I don't think that's really what would happen. They probably could have come up with another way to do that. Like even just leaving Tom on a planet somewhere or something, right? But I agree. This is a crazy plan.
I also would wonder about... I don't know if Seska would just go straight to the Talaxian convoy and kidnap Tom from there. I think you might want to be a little bit more subtle about it, of find where their first stopping point is, and kidnap Tom there. If they're going down to a planet, Tom will go to a bar, kidnap him from the bar, and then it would be, you could hide it, or you could make it less obvious, because would you want Voyager to know that you have Tom? Because, maybe, we saw, the Talaxians immediately called Neelix and went, hey, they kidnapped your buddy. Whereas if Voyager had no reference that Tom's missing, you might not change security protocols.
Yeah. And first of all, we don't have any security protocols, so there's nothing to worry about there.
Say your password quietly in front of the computer.
Drink. It would have made a little bit more sense if instead of saying or getting the word out that they were putting him on another ship, to have said, oh, we're dropping him off at some planet that is maybe not Ryza, but like a casino planet or something, but maybe there wasn't one nearby, and so they had to come up with a different thing. I do hope that they gave the Talaxians something in exchange for this and explained to them that this was a dangerous mission, but I do think there were other things they could have done. They could have had him get picked up while he was on a shuttle transporting over to that other ship.
Right.
But I guess the difference is this way, they were able to be warned as soon as it happened, whereas if they had just dropped him off on a planet, they wouldn't have known right away.
And you might have the problem of if Tom has to make communication every day to say, I'm still here, somebody else could pick that up, right?
Yeah. I think in the story, they needed it to happen quickly.
Yeah, this was a good way to do it.
Yeah, we did it super simply, and here we are.
That does make me think about your comment of how they're leaving chaos in their wake.
Yeah.
Now they've left this Talaxian convoy with maybe just damaged ships, injured crew. This is some more of that chaos in their wake.
Yeah, I hope we at least help them repair their ship.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the least you could do. That is quite funny.
I was wondering if the whole thing was fake, too. Did they actually get him kidnapped some other way? But they had this ship call Voyager to give the message, oh, we were attacked. Do you know what I mean? The whole thing could have been a setup.
Oh.
And that he was actually taken just while he was transporting over or something. I don't know. But we didn't really delve into that too deeply. So it seemed like they transported Tom to that ship.
It did,
and then they got attacked. And we didn't care because it was all a plan.
And my final point here, I did they've sort of settled down on the writing of Neelix and Tom. I mean, it was pretty rough early on.
Yeah.
So this was kind of a nice change.
Yeah, I think we've seen that ever since the episode with the weird E.T. puppet baby.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah.
The Muppet Baby.
Whatever that was called.
Which I thought was actually really well done. But I can't believe how much you laughed when you saw that.
Oh, it was funny.
And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis. There's not a lot of analysis.
No.
There's a lot of questions in this episode.
Yeah, there's not a lot to analyze. I mean, we've kind of talked about most of the things in my list. The thing with the journalistic ethics is just nonsense, but that's fine. It was the 90s. I get that.
Yeah.
And the plan with Tom and the Talaxians was wild because it seems like we put another race in peril. And I just don't think we would do that normally, no matter what was going on, no matter what thing we were trying to smoke out. I don't think we would put others at risk.
I think the plan was pretty good. I think your point that maybe they were hoping the trader would approach Tom with a, hey, buds together in this kind of thing.
Right.
I think the plan was solid. Maybe not the end part of it.
And then the last thing in my list is, did we forget that we needed Verterium Cordonide or whatever it was at the beginning of the episode that we desperately needed?
What's that? What do we do?
Because we didn't get it because we weren't able to go to the place that had it.
This has the problem of they still can't travel at warp. So that means they're basically restricted to sublight speed.
Well, I assume what happened is that they had Neelix come up with a second option of where they could get that, and they were able to solve it. But that was the boring part of the story. That's whoever it is who emails me and always tells me that, they don't show the easy things. They only show the things that are hard that make good episodes.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, Neelix says, or I just call my buddy Razik, who has, deals in this stuff, and we'll have him bring some to us.
Yeah, and we trade some painkillers for it or something.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, let's see. For women in the future, I don't have a lot to say. I mean, Seska continues to be very funny and just a weird soap opera-like character. The playing up the carrying Chakotay's baby is just so silly. It's such a soap opera moment.
Agreed.
But there's really nothing else kind of going on there. And then in Janeway's leadership corner, again, I think we've talked about everything. Would Janeway really put other races in peril? I don't think she would. Yeah. But I do think she pivoted really well in the moment when Chakotay was getting mad and she's like, oh, no, we needed this and you did. What a great job you did. I have 100% done that. It doesn't always work. The person still can, escalate up and get mad. But sometimes it actually does turn people on their head and de-escalate the situation.
It was beautifully delivered by Kate Mulgrew as well.
Yeah, I thought she did great.
You did a damn good job.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was in the last episode, but there's a moment where Tom is really being a jerk and gets into a fight with Chakotay. And Janeway says to him, oh, no, I trust you. You don't need me to interfere. I trust you. And we're like, how the hell? Why would you trust him? And it's like, oh, okay. She didn't really. She actually, what she was saying was, I trust you to escalate this inappropriately because that's exactly what my story needs. And good job. That's exactly what she did.
I can rely on Chakotay doing the wrong things and making it perfect.
The sort of darker side of leadership, I've talked about this before, maybe not on the podcast, but a lot of times it is about manipulating people and trying to get the best out of them for the situation you're in, maybe for the larger team, maybe for the business that you're in, or in this particular case, for the mission that you're on. And sometimes it really is just about manipulating the situation and manipulating people in order to do what you think is the right thing. Now, that can be a really dangerous, negative thing, but it can also be something that you're just doing for the greater good. And I kind of looked at this as that. Like she was, manipulating a situation and manipulating a person. There's a little bit more to it because she wasn't sure she could trust him, right? And I still think you shouldn't trust him. But I thought it was a good example of that kind of leadership. Whether or not it was accidental, that was still the way that I viewed it.
Well, there's a very good reason for them not trusting him.
Oh, 100%.
That was, it was valid. And I think if you were Tuvok and you were looking at it completely from an egoless and emotionless point of view, just logically, you would look at it could be Chakotay. Is the traitor.
Totally. And it really helps with the why in the hell do we trust this guy and why should we trust this guy? And it helps me to realize, oh, okay, they are having doubts, which I think is realistic.
Right.
All right, let's go on then to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating of Investigations?
This is a thumbs up. It is a pretty good episode. I do enjoy it. It is very much, I think, an episode of the 90s. The take on journalism and this sort of idealism to an extent. It would be wonderful if we had that. But it feels like an episode of its time. It's actually still a good episode, and it wraps up a really nice thread that we've had going through of why Tom was behaving as he was. And I think it wraps it up in a great storytelling way. And I think it works as an episode. It was great coming to this point because I've been avoiding giving you the spoilers. So it was good finally getting here. So it's definitely a thumbs up. It's an enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I agree. Thumbs up. Very entertaining. And it really is an episode of its time with the journalism part of it.
Right.
But
Agreed.
what's funny is you just sort of casually mentioned there that they wrap this thing up that they've been doing over several episodes, but that's not something they frequently do in episodic television.
Right,
So, yeah,
right.
It was actually kind of cool that they were pulling the story along. They were pulling it pretty gently, but still, they pulled the story along over several episodes, and then we kind of wrapped it up in this episode. So that's actually pretty cool. So I quite liked it.
I would agree.
Although, is this the end of Neelix TV? Do we see this ever again?
I can safely say I do not honestly remember.
Yeah, me either. All right, well, that wraps up Season 2, Episode 20.
Yes, it does.
Come back next week for episode 21. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com. You can also find us on some of the socials. We're on Threads, we're on Blue Sky, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram at ReBingeIt. And you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.